Yo, and welcome to the first Always Better Than Yesterday interview session of 2020. My guest is James Green. James, welcome, my friend.
Thanks, man. Happy to be here.
Yes, it's the first one. It's the first one to the new format as well after Facebook Live stopped us bringing guests on. So I'm learning. Hopefully, we'll be free of technical glitches. But yeah, thanks for joining us. And you and I connected through church last year, and I entered church and there's this guy with a denim jacket walking around with a cool haircut, and I just thought, man, this guy is pretty cool. And yeah, it's been a pleasure to get to know you since, and I just had to bring you on. So yeah, please just share a little bit about who you are and your story.
Thanks, man. Cool. So yeah, so I am a film director, creative director. So I'm currently working for an organization called Stabal, which is a record label in London. I also run a small production company called Of Dust and Stars, which focuses on making upbuilding, gospel-centered films, music videos, short films, and stuff like that. So yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell and what I'm up to.
Amazing. And your content is awesome. Like if you are watching or listening to this on the podcast, please do go check out James's content. It is beautiful creations. And I guess, where did it all start? Where did you find your love for that creative art?
Well, how far back do you want to take it? Yeah, I think I've always kind of been artistic. As far back as I can remember, I was drawing, painting, as many kids do. I was never particularly sporty, but yeah, kind of focused more on arts and creativity, I think, growing up. And yeah, really through school, that became my focus. I wasn't particularly academic, and so a lot of my time was spent in, art classes, focused in on doing A-level art and what have you. And then after that, went to college for a bit, and then kind of didn't do art at all. Actually, I had this hope that I might go to art college, I think, but I don't think I really believed in myself to be able to do it, and didn't really understand the process, and I kind of bottled out of it, I think. And so I ended up going to college and studying carpentry. And so I became a carpenter, did 3 years apprenticeship in that, and then a couple of years working as a self-employed carpenter. And then a rather unorthodox path back into creativity. I got married in 2007 to a gorgeous woman called Rebecca. She got bought a camera for her birthday by her dad, which is an incredibly generous gift. We went out one day and just kind of took some photos and had fun, kind of enjoying it, and I absolutely loved it. The difference between having this dodgy little compact camera that I had at the time, that just everything looked flat and lifeless, to this amazing kind of DSLR camera where everything came to life and looked three-dimensional. It was just amazing. And at that time, I was a musician. I was actually a hip hop artist back in the day, and so we were doing a lot of gigging, a lot of touring, and so we had to create, collateral for it. So photographs, we wanted to do videos and all sorts of stuff. And so the photography came around from really messing around, trying to create content that I could send to people, photographs for promoters, stuff that we could use on our website and what have you. And that's why I jumped into doing website design around that time, so that I could build a website for the music. Got on there and did it. If I look back now, it's an atrocious website, as was my haircut. But that was kind of like the starting point, I guess, and just really fell in love with photography, actually. And really, on the back of that, we were like, well, maybe at the time I was working also for a charity ministry in Bath called KCM, and I took a job for very low pay. Like, it was about £10,000 a year, right, part-time, in 2005. And I did this right at the same time I had an opportunity to take a record deal for a heavy metal, new metal band. And the plan was to sign with those, go on tour, to California, which is like my dream.
Yeah.
And then, the rest is history. But actually, in reflection, it didn't feel right. It meant me moving to Birmingham, away from everything that was going on here. And at the same around the same time, we're helping to plant this church in Trowbridge and build this community. It just felt so rich. And so it really felt like there was a cost to that idea of going and doing that, and it just didn't settle with me. And randomly, whilst I was in my garage writing up invoices for carpentry, I found a letter in the garage, and that's where my dad used to keep the computer back in the day. We had to wind it up, to get the internet. And I found this letter with my name on it, opened it up, and it was from this place in Bath, this charity, saying there's a job going as a prison minister or in prison ministry. So I thought, wow, that's amazing. That's kind of a cool job. I might, apply for that. I feel like it's up my street. So applied for it and ended up getting a job. It's a part-time post of, like I said, really, really low pay, but amazing people. And really, I worked from there from 2005 until 2015, did 10 years with those guys. And over that time, I started out as a prison minister. And then someone spotted one of my sketch pads, illustration pads that I used to just take in and just illustrate during lunch and after I almost said after school, after work. And they'd seen it out on the side, and they nosily had a look through it, and they loved it. And they ended up then going, unbeknown to me, to my superior and said, this guy's really talented. You should get him on like a graphic design course or something like that. Then he came to me and said, I'm really sorry, someone did sneak a look at your artwork and they loved it and have come to me and said that I should think about getting you on a design course. Do you mind if I have a look at some of your stuff? And so, yeah, okay. So I showed them it and they were like, this is amazing. Let's have a look at some courses, because they were in need of an in-house designer. So that was about 2 years into that job. And so then they sent me off for a day with this person that taught me about Photoshop and the ins and outs and that. And then I did another more prolonged course and then online training, etc., etc. And quickly became the graphic designer over the space of about a year. And then still involved with the prisons a bit here and there. And then after that, became the multimedia designer, which involved lots of other things like photography, video, website design, all those different things. So the whole creative sphere, really. So it's a really good basis for me to get an idea of how I guess, certainly from how you market something point of view, creative overview, which is really cool and very helpful for me. And at the same time, around 2008-ish, we decided we were going to do a side business in photography. So I started doing these little portrait sessions for friends, started to build a portfolio. Friend's wedding came up. I think it was 2011, 2010, something like that. And said, hey, look, I don't know what I can get for you, but I'd love to give you wedding photography for free, just because I think it'd be a really good gift, because they weren't going to be able to afford it. I thought this would be a really nice gift to give to them, and there's no risk for me if it goes horribly wrong, then you aren't going to have any anyway. So did it, and it was in Bath. It was really beautiful, actually. Went up, the main street. It's got these kind of cool shots. Came away and absolutely smashed it, and I kind of surprised myself at how well it went. I think partly it helps that they were absolutely beautiful people. And Bath is stunning, so it was the odds were on my side. So did that, went really well, and then on the back of that, had I think maybe 4 bookings for the following year from their friends, and so did them at a super low price kind of thing on the side. And this went on, and then it rapidly became very popular, and I started to get booked out for the whole year. So I was working this job as a multimedia designer, but at the same time, my photography business was just rocketing with wedding photography. And so worked both jobs for a while. And then in 2015, jumped ship and said, I'm going to go full-time self-employed. Which was a big risk, because wedding photography is really seasonal. Like, you know, even though people do get married all year round, the bulk of my work was always from kind of March till October, November, and then November through till March again. It was just pretty much dead. And because I built my business and my brands pretty much solely around weddings, I mean, I got some amazing weddings, but I struggled during those quiet times, and I made the jump into self-employment in October.
What helped you? So I'm going through it at the moment. So you know that I'm leaving the police on the 14th of February, and what helped you make that decision?
It was, I think, a lot of thought and a lot of prayer went into it, and it was something that my wife and I have been talking about for a long time, because it came to the point where it became a little bit unmanageable to do both. So doing both was like, I can't do a full-time job whilst doing this business, which is really a lot of work.
Yeah.
And so it was just like I was just hitting burnout mode, and I was like, I've got to make a change. Either I make the jump or I don't, and I just stay where I am, and I start to slow down the business. And I just really loved the idea of freelance life at that stage, thinking I would really like that freedom, that flexibility to, you know, build my own schedule, do the work that I like, have a bit of a better rhythm to life. And so just did it, and just felt like it was the right time. You know, me and Bex got together, we had a little prayer, and we're just like, I just really feel like I need to do it now. And it feels like jumping out on water, but it just, I can't explain it, just feels right. As much as it felt nuts, like, why would you, like, strategically, why would you leave the place of secure employment that's paying you quite well month to month, to then jump into nothing guaranteed? There was nothing guaranteed, not until March. And so strategically, you'd be like, well, just leave in March. You know, you've got your money coming in then, it gives you some time then to have a buffer. Much more sensible. But, you know, we've always been people who follow, I guess, the inner voice. And we just felt like the inner voice was saying, we need to do that. We need to jump.
How'd you learn to listen to that?
Oh, it's a very good question. So for us, we're Christians. So I guess our practice is in prayer, silence, reflection, asking questions and waiting for answers or inspiration to come. Cultivating the right kind of heart to hear and to know, which I think is based upon integrity, and is based upon, I guess, some of those spiritual disciplines of like meditation and contemplation and those things that allow space to hear. Because I think that often in modern day life, it's easy just to get wrapped up in frenetic madness, and you can't even hear your inner voice. You can't even hear, or the voice of God, or whatever you might perceive it to be. You can't hear that because you're just so stimulated. And so so I think it's about cultivating the right heart and the right patterns in life to help hear, you know. And also it's just a faith step. It's like there's no guarantee, you know. It's not like I get a letter that comes from heaven and says this is exactly what you need to do. It's like it comes through inspiration, and it comes through a moment of like, I sense there's a weightiness to this. Like, it's not just like a thought that I have, there's something more weighty about it. And so I listen to those. I've learned to listen to those. We've, you know, my wife had left a well-paying job at a point when we were about to have our first child. She just wanted to be, you know, full-time mum, which is respect to her. She's more ballsy than me, that woman. And she left that whilst I was still in a very low-paid job, or not in a very low-paid job, but I was in a much lower-paid job. Here we are, you know, in this situation now with a baby on the way, a mortgage, and you know, provision that's needed. And again, nothing guaranteed. There's nothing planned. There's no job lined up. There's no part-time work lined up. But after that, you know, stuff started to happen. She started to explore other avenues, and she ended up setting up this debt advice center, which she got funding for, which was the perfect amount of time for her just to do bits and pieces and work and really impact the community. She did that for a few years and then handed that over. And she saw hundreds of people come through there and get their advice and get help to get out of there. It was amazing. So we're the kind of people that I think we really desire to live a life of faith and of risk that doesn't keep us stagnant, doesn't keep us in the same place, because I honestly believe that we're supposed to be transformed and things are supposed to, we're supposed to evolve.
So at what point did you, because of Dust and Stars, it says on there, ancient truth told new. What does that mean?
So I think for me, it's about repackaging, I guess, the biblical teachings. Because, the Bible's written many years ago to an audience far from where we are, typically Greek and audience and Hebrew audience. And so the language they use, some of the cultural references, all of those things are really hard to understand unless you understand the culture of the time. And I've been someone who's been in the game a little while now. I've been a Christian since I was 19 years old. I've learned some of those things, but I've had to study, the meanings of some of the scriptures and some of the stories, and understand how they connect with the people at the time and why it was so relevant. Like Jesus meeting with a woman at a well, what's the big deal? Like, we all talk to women, like you weren't even allowed to back in the day. So it's these cultural references, and then saying, right, okay, cool. So if Jesus meeting a woman at a well who was part of this other tribe, and has a conversation with her and tells her everything about her life without her telling him anything, prophecy, he knows her, and she runs off and then tells everyone that the Messiah's come. If the point of that story is that Jesus isn't worried about breaking the rules because it's the way it's supposed to be done, or you're not supposed to be talking to those people, or you're not supposed to be engaging with those people, and not only that, but actually that God can do something amazing with those people. You take my heart is to take the essence of that story and then repackage that into our daily context. So I've just done a short film. Well, it's not a short film, it's a music video. It's narrative. I do a lot of narrative music videos, which is kind of short films and music videos connected together. So I've just done one in partnership with a guy called Andy Hunter, who runs the Presence Project. You should check that out. Great guy. And he's recently been reconnecting like some of these old school hymns. And one of them is obviously super well known, is Amazing Grace. Yeah. And so Amazing Grace, around the slave trade and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, well, what's the essence of this story? What's the essence of this song? Amazing Grace, who saved a wretch like me. Once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see. So what would that look like today in like somewhere that really needs it? So we went to, a friend of mine runs a church in a community in London. It's one of the top 10 deprived places in England, and for poverty. And started to build a relationship with him, and we started working with the community to create these films. And so this was actually the fourth piece that we've done with that community. And so it's The Amazing Grace, which is a story of a take on the prodigal son. So in the Bible, there's a story of the two sons, or the prodigal son. There's two sons and a father. One son runs off, asks for inheritance. Dad, let me have my inheritance now so I can do what I want with it. Runs off, takes the money, goes to the city, smokes it up, drinks it up, has a wild time with women and all sorts. And then runs out of money, and he's like, oh crap, I'm out of money. Back in those days, there wasn't any YMCA hostels. Do you know what I mean? It's like you're out on the street, mate. And so he ends up living with these pigs, which again, cultural reference for Jews is a big no-no. Like, pigs are filthy. So, and in that moment, he realizes, I need to, maybe if I go home and if I apologize, maybe Dad will make me into a servant, and then at least I can just be in a house and have a bed. So he decides he's going to do that, and so he travels home. And when he's far off, the father runs back, meets him, and that depicts a few different things. One, that the father, who should never have run back in that day because it's a sign of disgrace for a man to run, an older man to run, meets his son. That's a powerful moment. And then, whilst he's still covered in pig's poo, the father wraps him in a blanket, takes him in, puts a ring on his finger, which signifies his authority. He's given back as a rich young man. Ring on the finger, robe to cover his shame. And he goes, not only that, for his pie. He managed for his massive party, blah, blah, blah. And there's more to that story because it goes on and talks about the older brother and the older brother's reaction and all that kind of stuff. But just to focus in on that powerful illustration of the nature of I guess of God and his desire to reconnect with the son who's effectively screwed him over. I thought it was beautiful, and I was like, well, what hasn't been done is it hasn't been flipped. It hasn't been like, because I feel like it's a lot easier to forgive a child than it is to forgive an adult, and I'm like, what's a more powerful story for now? Not obviously to write that story off as a powerful story full stop, but what else could be added to reveal the nature of God in this story? And I just felt that having a son that needs to forgive a father and welcome home a father is awkwardly powerful.
Very.
Because parents should know better. Parents should be responsible. It should not be that the kids should not need to forgive the parent to that degree. It shouldn't even get to that place. And so this is also communicating the fact that this idea of grace, which is undeserved goodness and undeserved favor, can be offensive. It can be really offensive. Like, he doesn't deserve forgiveness. What's he done to deserve forgiveness? He's just completely screwed his son over. The story is it's set in this neighborhood. You've got this father and this son. Opens up with, you can watch it on ofdustandstars.com.
It's amazing.
You go on there, it opens up with the father. He's been drinking and he asks his son to get him a beer. His son doesn't get a beer, and the father's a bit drunk, and so he starts a fight, beats him up a little bit. And then the father leaves the house and he's out with his mates and he's selling drugs and causing all sorts of trouble. I don't want to ruin the story too much, but I kind of am the story.
Go and watch it.
The father has a shocking event that wakes him up and makes him realize that the way he's been living is not right. And so he doesn't even have any time to make it right in the story. And this is another thing I did. I left it so that, because I believe the nature of what we're trying to communicate in the Christian message is we don't really have the ability to make it right, the stuff we've done wrong or whatever. But it's not really about us. It's not about that story. It's about the story that we're welcomed home into a relationship, I guess. And so he turns back and he ends up returning home to his son, and his son welcomes back into the house. You don't see any of the conversation. You don't know he leaves loads of questions like, why did he just let him in? Why? What's the process of unpacking all that? Why? He leaves a pretty serious scene behind. Like, what about that scene that's just happened and that person? Do you know what I mean? So it's like, there are loads of questions, but I wanted to trigger that because that, set against this backdrop of Amazing Grace sung over the top of it, I feel is powerful, is because in spite of it all, Amazing Grace. Do you know what I mean? And so if it's ancient truths told new, that's exactly what it is. It's films like that. And I work a lot with musicians, to create that content.
What inspires you, mate?
You inspire me, Ryan.
I'll pay you later.
What inspires me? Gosh, it's a good question. I think everything. There's so many ways that I get inspiration. Inspiration comes through through music. I listen to the artists that I create for. I listen to their music kind of on repeat, and I sit there and I visualize and something comes to my mind, and then I develop that idea, and so it will come from the music. Inspiration can come in a moment where I'm just cutting vegetables and I'm thinking about something, and then it pops into my head. Inspiration can come from moments of prayer when I'm praying and something then pops into my head. Other films, love films. Pinterest, Instagram. Although I'm very keen and very cautious not to copy, because I just don't think that that's the way you create your best art as an individual. But certainly I do gain inspiration from other artists and think, they've lit it like that. That's really interesting. Or, they've styled it this way. I really like that. And then what can I do to take something from that into my own work? Yeah.
Would it be fair to say that you love what you do?
It's kind of a hard grind, man. Yeah, I do love what I do. So as of August, I have taken a position at Stabal record
Mm-hmm.
label, creating exclusive content for them, music
Mm-hmm.
videos, documentaries, short films, etc. And that is just dream job,
Mm-hmm.
and overseeing the whole creative project and the whole creative sphere of what Stable puts out. And then also doing little bits and pieces still with films on the side. So for me, yeah, it's dream job, and I am doing what I love. Yeah,
It's a bizarre concept. It's a
yeah.
bizarre concept for people to gather about loving what you do comes at a cost. But I'd just love to know, like, what some of the sacrifices that you've made over the years to find this place where you get to do what you love every day.
Sure. I think there definitely has been costs, financial, emotional, relational.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm being perfectly honest, it's not always been rosy and good. Sometimes it's been really difficult.
Yep.
There have been costs, like I said before, like practical costs, like, oh, I'm going to leave this job and do this.
Yep.
The thing that motivates it all, like I said, is that inner compulsion to see something that I want to do, or that I believe is part of my fulfillment of who I am. So I believe that intrinsic to me is to be a creator, is to create, and is to create something that captivates and that, for me, points people back to the Christian faith. For me, that's like my motivator. So that's very intrinsic to who I am. And so for me, the decisions I'm making about work certainly influence that, are like the driving force. But there have been costs. There's been costs with finances, having to make investments. At the beginning, took out loans to get kit and stuff. They were paid off, no problem. But leaving jobs, there's the stress that's involved. There's the risk element, and then that has relational impacts on family and how we feel about stuff. Also, just like me dealing with my inner life. Sometimes my motivations haven't been from a pure and good place. Sometimes my motivations are because I feel like I need to validate myself, or I need to get approval, or, and so I make decisions based on those things that then have consequences, because actually I'm making a good thing an idol in my life. And then that idol becomes something that I'm kind of stuck by or trapped by. And then it has repercussions, because it becomes so important. It takes the wrong place in my life, and it becomes more important than my family, or it becomes more important than, my relationships. And that's really, I see that a lot in people that are driven, and a lot in people that do a lot of things successfully outwardly. I see a lot of that unhealth, that question of what is it that is driving me, and how is that driver affecting my relationships, which really is the most important thing in life. At the end of the day, I'm not going to be sat on my deathbed going, oh man, I wish I made one more film. Wish I made that film. You know what I mean? It's going to be like, did I invest my life in the people around me? That's the thing. And I found that really hard, if I'm perfectly honest.
Sometimes what I found is just having the humility to look and go, I've not got the balance right. Something I've had to learn over the last year is, I'm just not giving the best of myself to those that need me most. And it can be tough. It can be tough.
It can be tough. And there are seasons where, work requires a lot. It requires a lot of investment. But I think it's the thing I'm learning is how I journey those seasons where I'm really bad at communicating when I've got a lot on. Like, I'll just get in it and I'll be like, I've got this documentary, I've got this film, I've got this thing going on, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like buried in my computer, and I'm out on set and I'm shooting, or I'm out at a location filming this person or meeting with this artist. And so I'm like, I can be consumed because of the complexity and the variables. And communicating, number one, with my wife, the most important relationship in my life, communicating with her what's going on, what I've been up to, how it's affected me, and how I'm feeling is super important, because she needs to, if I'm on this journey, she needs to share in that journey in some way or another. Because if I don't, I'm just off firing off this way and she's over here. She doesn't know who I am or what I'm doing, and she doesn't know where I'm going, and then she's just completely not involved in my life anymore. I may as well just be a single guy doing work. And so I think for me, it's just been learning how to communicate where I'm at, what's going on, how I'm feeling, and then check in with her. How are you doing? I know, and then also be aware of the cost and putting things in the right order. My family needs to be up here. My work doesn't need to be up there. My work needs to be here. It's super important. My work is really important to me, and my calling is super important to me. I want to give it lots of time. So, but the funny thing is it's important to my wife, and it's important to my family, and they want the best for me also. And so it's just learning how to do it healthily, do you know what I mean? And how to put things in the right place, do it healthily. And I am 100% learning. I mean, there's a bunch of tools out there that have been super helpful, but yeah.
Which would be your recommended?
Oh, yes. Okay. So, yeah, things that I found really helpful. Well, number one, like my church community are amazing. And like some people I've journeyed with for many years, Sam and Jason, the pastors of the church, you know, known them for a long time, well over a decade, and just journeying with them and just speaking into each other's lives, being really open with each other. And they're amazing on like formational work. So they do a lot of, you know, training in psychology, and they do a lot about inner formation and stuff like that. So that's been really helpful as far as them bringing stuff to the table. You know, check out this person, check out that person. But I've certainly found things like, two really pivotal points for me in self-learning that have been really helpful. The first one was life languages, which is run by a couple in Bath who you've recently met. And that has been transformation. That was transformational level one. You know, a lot of these things I said that I've been struggling with in myself and in my relationships, really that helped give me understanding. Okay, it's a communications profiling thing. So why is it that I filter things like this and this person filters like that? And what's my motivation when I'm talking? Or what's my underlying question when I'm talking to someone? So me as a high mover in this would say my underlying question is what's your motivation? So I'll be in a conversation with Ryan Hartley right now, and my underlying question about everything what Ryan Hartley is saying is what's your motivation? Not is it like a bad motivation, but what's the point of what you're saying, so I can understand the point of what you're saying and then communicate it well. Makes sense.
Yeah.
And so and then also understanding my wife's languages. There you go, get on it, man, they're great. So understanding our different languages and then how we communicate to each other was just transformational. I was like I'm battering my head against the wall thinking, why does this person, just anyone, just like relation, not just husband and wife, but like kids, you know, and like friendships, why are they reacting like that? What is that about? And then you understand, okay, it's because they're this type of person and this is how they're filtering it. And so when you understand that, it takes offense out of it. I'm not offended by you, and I'm not like grating against you. It's just that's how you do it. And so for me to effectively love you well and to talk to you well, I need to use your language. And so that was really amazing. And then in more recent months, probably maybe even the last year, we've come across this thing called the Enneagram, which again has been amazing, personality profiling to another level. And I can really recommend the Sacred Enneagram book. I can't remember its by now. Let me quickly look. Sacred Enneagram is a book that I worked through. Here we go. And it's by Christopher L. Heuertz, Heuertz, with a foreword by Richard Rohr, who's fairly well known in the contemplative streams. So that's been amazing. Just again understanding my type and what motivates me, what drives me, what is good about me, what's unhealthy about me, what I need to work on, what I need to be aware of, all those different things. So
love that. How can people connect with you? How can they find your content?
So you can get me at ofdustandstars.com. On there's a bunch of videos and films you can go through, have a look at what we're doing. You can see a recent current project that we're working on, Magnetic North. You can see music videos and all sorts there. You can get me on Instagram of Dust and Stars. It's probably the only place you can get me, actually, because I'm rubbish at Facebook.
Amazing. Let me just say thank you for taking the time, coming and joining me, and sharing some of your story. There's so much more depth to your story. I know this, and yeah, go and follow James's content. Be inspired by what he puts out. And lastly, my friends, my last question is, you know that I'm all about always better than yesterday. I'm just curious to know what that phrase "always better than yesterday" means to you.
That's an invitation.
Mm-hmm.
It's an invitation to leave it or to do it. And I think the idea of always being better than yesterday, for me, is about learning from your mistakes, not being afraid to go into your shadow, and to learn from it, and to keep moving forward, keep the faith, keep building. Yeah.
Amazing.
Rock and roll.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you, my friend.
Been a pleasure.